Another city now where the Democratic Alliance has briefed the media on a range of issues emerging from the party's federal Congress. eNCA reporter Lester Kiewit was there and joins us now. Good afternoon to you, Lester. Give us an idea of what came out of that media briefing this afternoon.
Well, essentially, the Democratic Alliance is saying that that it wants to focus on the economy and job creation. At these almost 50 resolutions coming out of the federal conference would form the backbone for their 2019 election manifesto. I think what was key to come out is that the Democratic Alliance would want cities and metropolitan municipalities to be at the forefront of job creation and economic growth. They say that cities are best equipped to deal with cutting the red tape when it comes to providing those practices to help, especially small businesses and enterprises to kickstart their businesses and therefore to create employment. At the same time, we must remember that the Democratic Alliance governs several metros across the country, and what they've said is that in the city of Cape Town, it has found that their practices here in using the city of Cape Town and using its measures to cut red tape and cut bureaucracy has worked here, and it obviously wants to use that as a blueprint throughout the country. But it's going to be very interesting of how the Democratic Alliance uses these policy resolutions for essentially to govern the whole country. If it is still quite a long way, many would argue that they would govern a countrywide in a national government. Other key policy resolutions that the Democratic Alliance also wanted to clarify would be the issue of land restitution. The leader, Mmusi Maimane, saying that there's been confusion on its stance on land restitution. He says that the Democratic Alliance has no objection to land restitution and the restoration of people who were left landless during apartheid, their dignity. But he is saying that the process is not because of the failing of the constitution, but rather the failing of government. And also at times, quoting former President Kgalema Motlanthe, that many times it is government inadequacies and also corruption which has seen that the land restitution process has not gone ahead. So those are more the key substantive economic policies that the Democratic Alliance has put forward following their federal conference last week.
Lester, we've also been covering the story of the scandal and the probe now surrounding Arthur Fraser, the Director General of State Security. What was said at this media briefing about allegations that the DA had received confidential information from the Inspector General of Intelligence?
That's not necessarily something that was covered by the Democratic Alliance during today's briefing. They say that theirs was only to put forward these report backs of the conference. They say that that 2019 is a key election in this country, with many believing that it could be a very tight race overall. But the Democratic Alliance is saying that their concentration would be on the economy, would be that on jobs, and obviously, as I've said, wanting to put cities first and metropolitan metros first so that they could be the drivers of economic growth.
Natasha Matsoni is a very vocal force in the Democratic Alliance. I see that there appears to have been some kind of upset about whether she was appointed or elected this past weekend.
That's right. There was clarification from the DA's leader, Mmusi Maimane, regarding the election of Natasha Matsoni to be the party's deputy chairperson. This after reports that some party members in Gauteng are threatening court action to have that decision overturned. The DA is saying that there was an election in which Natasha Matsoni came second place for the deputy chairperson's role. He then says that following that there was then a change in the Democratic Alliance's constitution to acknowledge a place for two deputy chairpersons. He says this process was taken through the DA's internal mechanisms, through the Federal Legal Commission, who then ratified that decision. So according to the Democratic Alliance, Natasha Mazzoni was in fact elected and not appointed to this deputy chairperson's, second deputy chairperson's role, I should add, rather. And that he's saying, Musi Maimane is saying that that they would then only respond to these allegations or these comments regarding possible legal action by the DA's own members once that happens. But that has put somewhat of a sour taste, according to the DA, following what they've called a very successful conference. They say this was the biggest conference in the party's history, showing that along with the successes of a growing party also comes the teething problems and of a growing party. So Musi Maimane says overall it has been a successful policy discussions coming out of the DA's conference.
Lester Kiewit, thank you so much for putting us in the picture live to us there from Cape Town.